Yeah, I know. It's not metal.
Big whoop. Want to fight about it?
Today we are ranking the albums of Foo Fighters, and we're starting with Foo Fighters in 1995. Now, this album is entirely written and performed by Dave Grohl, saying he recorded it for fun and as a means to recover from the death of Kurt Cobain and subsequent dissolution of Nirvana, though some of the songs were composed before this. And in any case, if you didn't know, Foo Fighters is the name that World War II pilots used to describe UFOs. It's a solid little rock album with some jams. This Is a Call makes for a good opener. I'll Stick Around is solid. Big Me is probably the most recognizable song on the album, hitting number 13 on Billboard and starting the trend of tongue-in-cheek, comedy-oriented music videos. When I talk about it, Aries or treason's already new. Solid drumming and bass on the rockin' Good Grief. Weenie Beanie gets pretty damn heavy. It's a decent listen, but not one I feel compelled to go back to much, so not sure if this is a hot take, but I think this one's just okay. Side note, this is a band with a very consistent discography and no real bad albums. You could almost put all of them on the same tier, but that would be boring, so let's move along to The Color and the Shape in 1997. What an absolutely legendary release and definitely an early formative record of my childhood. After the chill intro of Doll, we get right into it with the classic Monkey Wrench. Plenty of memories also playing this song a lot at college parties on Guitar Hero. More great riffs on Hey Johnny Park, leading right into the great soft heavy back and forth of My Poor Brain. Another serious classic in My Hero with that killer drum and bass intro. Even before that unmistakable guitar line kicks in, you know what's up. But arguably even more important than that for me is the beautiful Everlong, which is one of my favorite tracks of all time. Wind Up is a straight rocker. Love that sudden transition on Up in Arms, which Dave compared to the band Knack. More great spotlights on the bass for the headbanging Enough Space, and almost Nirvana-worthy bonus title track with more great build-up and transition on New Way Home. Then you've got softer fare like February Stars and Walking After You, which have this palpable sense of melancholy to them that I'm sure is at least in part reflective of the divorce that Dave was going through at the time. I wouldn't call it a perfect album, but it's one of my favorites and generally the first I recommend to a new listener, so this one's going to perfection. They follow that up with There Is Nothing Left to Lose in 1999. Hey, hey, now, can you fake it? Can you make it look like we want? Another classic 90s album and the first appearance of the talented Taylor Hawkins on drums. Some more legendary songs on here, opening with the killer Stacked Actors, which aside from the heavy-hitting riffs is supposedly a dig at Courtney Love, but the band has always kept it pretty ambiguous, saying it's about the vapidness of Hollywood in general. Breakout is another song I recall jamming quite a bit on the old boombox, and then arguably the biggest track on here is Learn to Fly. Absolutely love this perfect radio single. Solid old school rock energy and bass groove to Gimme Stitches. Generator has some interesting use of talkbox. Live in Skin never fails to get me bobbing my head. And likewise, I always find myself singing along to the blissful Next Year. After that, things peter out a little bit for me, but those last three softer tracks have their own merits as well. Not my favorite album from front to back, but it's still a very good listen and a certified classic. I'm going to put this one at fantastic. By the way, if you're enjoying the video, hit the like button and help me out by commenting your own thoughts below to get a discussion going, even about differing opinions on all of these albums. But next up, we have One by One in 2002. This one dropped when I was in high school, and they played this lead single like at least every hour, along with the tie-in music video for that Orange County movie. Great song, and at the time I was pretty impressed with how heavy of a turn they took with some of these tracks. Low Channels has a bit of a Queens of the Stone Age vibe, contrasting harsh guitars and drumming with a more laid-back vocal performance. Also getting some of that on the guitar tone of Have It All. On the more traditional side though, we also have the excellent Times Like These for another radio anthem I still jam plenty today. It's times like these you learn to live again. And then after that, we start to get into some sort of meh material that's not bad, but just pretty forgettable in my opinion. Lonely As You is decent, Comeback brings back some of that Queens of the Stone Age flair. I just think I would have preferred that they stick to the heavy this time. Even the bonus track, Walking the Line, is better than a lot of the second half of this one. So this one is also just going to okay. Next up is In Your Honor in 2005. The title track here may be my favorite opener of their entire catalog. That big build with just the descending tremolo strumming and passionate vocals before we tip over into the drumming, and ultimately that final eruption of hammer-ons and pull-offs is just the best.
Nice.
No Way Back has another fantastic earworm hook, and it's impossible to not get caught up in the vocals. Then of course there's Best of You, which is like, what more can I say about this track that hasn't been said already? There's a reason why this song in the music video played basically around the clock.
I needed somewhere to hang my head without your news.
DOA, also a great choice. Plenty more deeper cuts like Hell and The Deepest Blues Are Black. Just love the way the guitars ring out on this entire album. Very bright and shiny production job. The only potential issue I have is the double album length, but honestly the acoustic disc is also very strong. So I'm gonna put this one also at fantastic. Then we had Echoes, Silence, Patience, and Grace in 2007.
What if I say I'm not like the others? What if I say I'm not just another one?
The Pretender also makes my list of possibly even top 10 Foo Fighters songs. Just an all-around perfect radio track and masterwork of pop songwriting in my opinion. Love that acoustic riff on Let It Die. Paired with the soft vocals, it has almost like a Neil Young kind of sound before it builds into the distortion. Great start-stop bass riff and pounding drums on Erase Replace. Another great single in Long Road to Ruin. Love the kind of soap opera music video for this one too. Unfortunately, after that, this one also loses a little bit of steam for me. Again, nothing bad, just failing to hit the same high bar set by those first few songs. I do really appreciate the finger-picked acoustic guitar of Battle of the Beaconsfield Miners. Statues is also a very The Beatles-esque piano-driven track I could see Paul McCartney singing over. And then we kind of rally near the end with the explosive, but honestly, and sort of Radiohead-sounding Home. Some downtime on this one marring the consistency, but very solid with some unskippable standouts. I'm going to put this one at great tier. Then we got Wasting Light in 2011.
These are my famous last words.
Banger opener with Bridge Burning. This one really took me back to that same energy as those classic albums. Easily one of my favorite Foo Fighters tracks. Same goes for Rope. All around fantastic performances from everyone across the board, and those drum breaks, chef's kiss.
Thank you, Chef.
White Limo going super metal again with those distorted guitars and harsh vocals. Even a nice little Tom G. Warrior for good measure. Lemmys even in the video. Alternatively, Arlandria is a more dynamic cut that I remember jamming on the radio a lot in the lead up to this album. Fun stomp and kind of 90s boner comedy soundtrack vibes to Back and Forth. And then there's the haunting I Should Have Known, which if memory serves me is about Kurt Cobain, with Dave even calling in fellow former Nirvana member Chris Novoselic to play bass. Honestly, I could go on and on about why every single track on this album is great, but suffice it to say, this quickly became my favorite start to finish Foo Fighters album. I'm putting it at perfection. Quick little shout out here to my merch store where you can find all sorts of cool gear with a sick design made by Corey of Curly Art and Zombie Shark. Also feel free to support me on Patreon. But next up we have Sonic Highways in 2014. Now, at the time, this was one of the most disappointing albums of the last decade for me. I found the gimmick of traveling the US to record songs in different famous studios around the country to be pretty intriguing, and the documentary was really engrossing. But at the time, I felt like all of that traveling superseded actually writing great songs. That said, I enjoyed it much more on this re-listen for whatever reason. Something from Nothing is fun with its funky little breakdown and pretty direct referencing of Dio with that main hook.
Oh, sweet ignition, be my fuse. You had no choice, you had to choose.
The Feast and the Famine is pretty damn catchy. Congregation has solid guitar work and drumming with the band really working as a unit. Great vocal dynamics on What Did I Do, God Is My Witness. Outside suddenly became one of my favorite tracks with its triumphantly wailing guitars, sing-along lyrics, and bass solo. The Clear also got me tapping my foot and singing along just like when I was hearing these guys for the first time in the 90s. Subterranean is super chill, and then I did remember really enjoying the powerful catharsis of those strings on the emotional closer, I Am the River. This one's going to great tier. Next up, Concrete and Gold in 2017. Lots of pretty straightforward and stripped back rock and roll tracks in the first half of this album. In some ways, it has like a similar energy and mentality as Queens of the Stone Age's Villains, but I might like this album a little bit better. Just some real guitar-driven head bobbers like these super heavy Run, old school Aerosmith energy of Make It Right, and kind of later the Beatles vibe of Sunday Rain. Again, I enjoy the pretty Queen of the Stone Age sounding bass groove and screams on La Di Da, and infectious bluesy chorus of The Sky is a Neighborhood. There are also some lighter, more melodic tracks like Happy Ever After and Dirty Water, though over time the latter also builds in energy and volume. But The Line may be my favorite track. The delay effect on these syncopated guitars has this sort of interpol sound to it, and then those big sparkly leads on the chorus are pure bliss. Solid album overall, but maybe a little bit forgettable. To be fair, this was one that I've listened to kind of the least out of a lot of these, so for now it's at good, but that could change over time. Like I said, these are all very much like varying by mild degrees. Next up is Medicine at Midnight in 2021. This was an interesting one with Dave saying he took a lot of Bowie influences this time around, and you can definitely hear that on tracks like Cloud Spotter, Medicine at Midnight, and the drifting Chasing Birds in particular. Fun use of backup singers and clapping on Making a Fire. Great use of rhythm and percussion on the kind of Dave Matthews-esque Shame Shame. Love that acoustic guitar and use of strings both for the mellow chorus and plucked verses. Alternatively, I'm not a huge lover of single Waiting on a War, but I do really enjoy the payoff of that big build at the end. No Son of Mine is also a standout for me. Total banger with a great hook and more fun use of backup vocals on the chorus. Holding Poison and Love Dies Young are good ones too. And at 36 minutes, it's a brisk listen that still manages to cover a lot of ground. So major props to this one for being one of the more unique touches in their discography. It kind of stands out, but I'm going to put it at great tier. Then we got Dream Widow in 2022. Bit of a bonus album for you here with the band performing as Dream Widow, which is their tie-in characters from the horror movie Studio 666, and obviously this being a metal channel, I had to cover it. Encino is just a grinder of an opener with those unhinged rapid-fire vocals and then the big atmospheric transition into this big groovy hook with the evil chanting. Cold has kind of a sludgy, high on fire and Caius energy with more big rumbling groove and kind of a bluesy vibe and then hypnotic bassy vocals and raspier snarls. Totally infectious chorus. Lead single March of the Insane is just a total rager with this very blackened thrash and speed metal style reminiscent of Venom. Sweet Abyss has some really fun reverb and echo on the vocals, which kind of adds this white zombie energy to the verses. Angel with Severed Wings finds Dave slightly pitching down and layering his vocals for this very uncanny kind of demonic effect. Come All Ye Unfaithful is another pounding chugger, mixing Foo Fighters' heavier moments with more desert rock vibes. Becoming has a very lengthy, almost ambient opening with creepy whispering and mumbling before we go into this absolute hellfire doom riff channeling Triptychon. And then we close with the big 10-minute plus Lacrimus Die Ebrius, which continues in the doom direction, but this time for more of a Black Sabbath-y energy, with some great Iron Maiden sounding riffs and plenty of twists and turns. Great to see Dave taking another detour into full-on metal territory after how much I loved his Probot album. I'm going to put this one at fantastic. Which brings us to But Here We Are in 2023. Now, I was definitely curious about this one in the wake of Taylor Hawkins' sudden and unfortunate passing on tour, and this definitely feels like the band trying to heal from that. It's got to be hard for Dave to lose another friend and bandmate like that. So Dave played drums for this one, though Josh Freese of Guns N' Roses, A Perfect Circle, and Nine Inch Nails, among other things, is the current touring drummer. Right from the opening track, Rescued, it really struck me just how throwback this feels. Like, down to the production, it really gives me similar vibes as their classics. Not to mention the positive vibes are something I could really use right now. I also dig the very Rush, proggy time signatures of the title track. Under You is another song that feels right out of the 90s with its moody energy and earworm vocal hooks.
All this time it still feels just like yesterday.
Nothing at All is also a very classic sounding bop, and the spacey, drifting Show Me How calls back a bit to tracks like Walking After You, and features some really lovely backup vocals from Dave's daughter Violet. And on a similar note, Beyond Me and Rest nearly bring me to tears. Now, as much as I enjoy this album, it does have its down moments like Hearing Voices and The Teacher, though those have their own strengths, especially the piano outro on the former. It's definitely more low-key, less in your face, but its genuine, personal, somber vibe feels very refreshing, especially in the present year. I could see this one rising over time. For now, I'm kind of feeling like good tier. Y'all check out this video for my Smashing Pumpkins ranking, and watch out for that Queens of the Stone Age ranking coming real soon. But that'll do it for now. Flight of Icarus signing off. I will see you in the trenches.